Well, good morning, everybody. And I would like to welcome you back to the High Performing Woman Talk Show. This is kicking off a new season. This is my first episode, and in the High Performing Woman Talk Show, I'm highlighting amazing women who are changing the world for the better in their respective areas of expertise. Now, one of the big things that I deal with, all of us deal with, and I help clients with as well, is stress. And, stress in itself is not bad. It helps us run away from lions. Like a zebra will get stressed, it'll be chased, and everything will kick in, the adrenaline, so it can run away and save itself. But stress can also be bad if it's chronic. So a zebra will run away, and after it's out of danger, quickly it will regulate and it'll go back to munching on grass or mating or doing whatever zebra things it does. And unlike humans, often they will, still a year later be in therapy with PTSD. So it's the chronic stress that we're trying to avoid. But what I'm thrilled to talk about today and to have on the show is Elle Ingalls. Now, she is a real expert in high performance and stress and how we manage that. She has some really unique tools. So the episode today is called Transform Your Stress Response, and welcome, Elle.
Well, I'm so glad to be here, Susan. I'm excited to share. And yeah, I love what you just said about the zebra. It's because we're not zebras. So.
Yeah, we need to be more zebra, but but we're not. Tell me a little bit about your background and your journey to becoming a high performance and stress management expert, because you have like a super, super cool background. So
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've spent my life devoted to athletics, music, and business.
yeah,
Those
that's
are my
very
three.
like, yeah,
I
very
know
different
it's kind of crazy, but
areas, right?
and I'm one of those girls that don't tell me no because I'm going to do it. So when they told me, oh, you have to kind of choose between sports and music, because I was a very high level violinist as a child, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm doing it all. So I kind of did it all. I did it all at the University of Michigan too. So I have 3 degrees from there. I did. I actually was the first woman in orchestral conducting at Michigan, so the first woman to conduct the symphony there, and so broke a great glass ceiling, which is back in '86. And after that, many women have come through that program. So that was very, very cool. And then I also got an MBA at a time when very few women were getting MBAs at Michigan. I can't even remember, maybe 25 of us in a class of 600. It was pretty unique. And so I've kind of been on the edge of doing things and doing hard things. But when I reflect on my background in sports and in music and in business, there's two
What
times in
was
my
the
life.
sport?
So I was a runner. I did a lot of sports in high school: cheerleading, basketball, running. But when I got to Michigan, I had actually destroyed my knees, and that's the story I want to share right now. Like when I go back in time and think, okay, how did this come to be, this performance coaching? It started when I was 17. I was a senior in high school running track, and I was our top 2 miler. And I trained super hard in the winter. And unfortunately, I was training in the wrong shoes. We didn't know a lot about that back then, but the shoes I was in were destroying under my kneecap, my patellas. They were so rough and jagged, I could barely lift my leg. And so I was done for the season. And actually, I think I kind of went into a bit of a depression because I loved my team. I cared so much about the girls. It was 26 distance girls alone on this team. So I went to the coaches and asked if I could apprentice coach. And something strange started happening at meets where both boys and girls would like line up to talk to me before their events for me to help them calm down. It was just like this very natural thing from being a violinist and performing from a young age. I knew how to be really calm on stage, to take the stage or take the high jump chord or whatever it is you're going to do and not be stressed. And so I look back at that and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've been doing this since I was 17. And,
Really? Yeah.
um, I thought it was interesting too. It was the top athletes, the boys and the girls who would talk to me. They were very interested in performing very well, but they felt a lot of stress. So it was the super high performers in particular. Um, then fast forward at Michigan, like I've never had stage fright, like never had any issue like that. I love the stage, but it was I was conducting a piece with a clarinetist who had won a big competition. We're in the big auditorium at Michigan, you know, Hale Auditorium. So there we are. We get done, we're in the green room, and he goes, "Oh my gosh, that was so cool. We were so aligned. Will you play your violin on my senior recital?" And of course, I just instantly say yes. But we're going to do the Mozart Clarinet Quintet, which is a very beautiful piece, but the violinist has like a super hard part. So I have to practice, and I'm doing 2 degrees, MBA, MM, working 2 jobs, right? And now I got to do this. So rehearsals go great, but when we took the stage, you know, people say we're afraid of public speaking, but what we're afraid of is someone in the room. It's not public
Right.
speaking, it's who's in the room.
Right.
So I've done so many recitals at Michigan. I walk out on stage, but then I look, and this kid must have been the most popular kid in the music school. It's standing room only. And in the back of the recital hall are all the string faculty to see us play the string quartet. And those were the people in the room. And I, for the first time ever, had a panic attack. It's the only time I've ever had a panic attack. I had a full on panic attack to the point I thought I was having a heart attack on stage, and I couldn't see the music. My hands were all sweaty, like it was a deal. And somehow I was enough of a pro to get through that event. But when I got off stage, I went to my friend and go, "Oh my gosh, I think I just ruined your performance." And he goes like, "What are you talking about?" He's in his own world trying to play. So like he didn't notice that my face was bright red, right?
Right.
That I
Right.
was a mess, right? But I went
Right.
back to my apartment and I'm like, crap, this can never happen again. Like I can't be conducting a 70-piece orchestra and have a breakdown. Like what the heck? So I went to the medical library because this is before any of those books like Inner Game of Tennis or any of that. I went to the medical library where I'd done some research in a psych class, and I went to the research librarian and I said, "I want everything you've got on mind body connection. Like, I wanted to know what happened to me." And so I dug in and I came up with what I call my little tools, my little toolkit, so that no matter what goes down, I can take the stage and not be triggered like that. We didn't even have those words back then. We didn't even have the word panic attack. We just called it
Yeah.
stage fright.
So when are you getting on to this question? Because I do have a question I want to ask. Is this
Yeah.
what inspired you to develop the pressure-free method?
Um, I would say I kind of developed it way back then, but there was no name for it or anything. What
Right. Right.
inspired me to create it was years, decades later. I have 3 sons. My 2 eldest sons were playing baseball for their high school. And the eldest said, "Mother," it was actually at our dining room table back in a different house. It's like, "Mother, you should coach our team in your mental toughness tips. We could be really good." And I just started laughing, like, who wants their mother in the dugout, right? But he was completely
What a
serious.
compliment.
I know,
Yeah.
right? He
That's
goes,
awesome.
I actually said, I goes, "You don't want me in the dugout." He goes, "Actually, I want you in the dugout." And I was in the dugout with 3 different teams that in the next 3 years, like, they actually had me come in and do a little session right before districts. But what we did, so he says that, and I just started writing that night. Like, it just poured out of me. And my husband's a pro writer, so he kinda tightened the language, threw in funny graphics, right, so the boys could relate. And I had this pamphlet. I took it to the coaches, and when I took it to the head coach, he was a financial planner for Chase Bank, and he's like, "I need this. Will you coach me personally? I want you to be my private coach, but I do
Right.
want you to work
Right.
with the boys." So I started working with those boys, and then I really dug in. I'm like, "Okay, what is it that I'm doing in these little tools? Like, what's actually happening?" And so I really went deeply on what is the fight or flight stress response? How is it affecting human beings? And how can we interrupt it? So that is really where I got into developing my method, giving it a name. It's completely different than what most people do when they teach people about stress. because it goes straight to the root cause of the release of stress hormones at the adrenal glands. And so, um, my method doesn't, it's not an extra to do. You don't have to add things to your day. You actually get to notice when you're starting to go into fight or flight and you interrupt it. And that is how my method works for people.
So that must take a lot of self-awareness. Like some
Yeah.
people,
So,
right?
yeah,
So,
it really
so,
does. It really
so
does, and I just, step side by side with my clients and guide them to gain their awareness and understanding of what's really happening. In my first coaching session, I share more than what someone learns in going through an entire psychology program. Because my youngest went to psychology, was a psychology major at Columbia, one of the greatest schools in the world. I have all his books, so I've seen what he was taught, and I'm like, "Wow, they teach you what the stress response is, but never relating it in terms to actually the diagnoses of the stress response of mental health, and like really digging into that the way that I have." So when I look at what's being taught, like I coach psychologists, therapists, and physicians, like, I don't know this. And so that's kind of my deep expertise. And when I teach someone what's going on with their body and mind at that level, it's like all the light bulbs come on. It's like, "Oh gosh, I get it now. I understand why I feel the way I do." Then the awareness can open up. My
some people don't always know that they're stressed,
They
right?
don't. I didn't.
I
I'm
remember
gonna raise my
being in
hand.
a job that was really tricky, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm not stressed."
I was
And only after leaving it did I like, "Oh, wow, was I ever stressed?"
That's right.
But you become used to it, like, maybe even comfortably numb, or you
We
don't even realize it.
Well, here's a couple little things to note. When a female triggers the stress response, or I should say first, when a male, biological male triggers the stress response, the cycle of hormone releases, there are two different releases. The entire cycle to the point where the hormones are dissipated out of the cells takes about 9 hours, up to 9 hours, depending on the load. But for
9 hours
9
to get
hours,
the stress
correct.
response out
Which
of your
is why
system.
most people have difficulty sleeping.
Like,
Most
longer than
people
coffee, right?
That's right. Most people have difficulty sleeping. Most people are fatigued or they hit the wall at 3 p.m. And then the other is, but for females, it's an up to 24-hour cycle. And so pretty much every human you know around you is caught in the stress cycle. So by interrupting the stress response, which is what I teach, you get out of that cycle. And you can get out of it depending on the person. Some people get out of it very quickly. Like I had a young girl in chronic anxiety for 2 full years. In 2.5 weeks, she broke it. And it was life-changing for her. Like she literally hadn't smiled in 2 years. The anxiety was so overwhelming. And they tried everything. They tried meditation, yoga, medication, therapy, and nothing had helped her. And when she understood what was going on with her body and mind, and it was just like awareness opened up. She's like, "Oh, I see. I got to change the alarm on my phone because when I hear it, it triggers me." There's so many little
Oh,
things,
right.
so many
There's
little
so many
sounds.
stress triggers.
Oh my gosh, most people wake up and in the first hour of their day, they've triggered 20 times. So,
Wow, and how do you unpick all of that? How do you figure out what
well,
is triggering you and what isn't?
I think
Or
it's like with any kind of change we're making in our lives, you need to gain a little traction. So I'll share how I gained my first traction. By the way, I was kind of cocky and didn't think I needed my own method when I was coaching it. Okay. Clearly I did. Clearly I did. I had signs, but I was in denial of the signs. And here were my signs. My first big violin competition, I was 13. This hand broke out in eczema, cracked, bleeding knuckles for 30 years, 35 years. In 8 weeks of using my method on myself, that skin completely healed. That's
wow.
a 60, those are 62-year-old fingers.
Yeah, less stress, less
That's
inflammation,
correct. You can actually
right?
get the nutrients out to your skin, out to your cells. I'm going to share this with your audience too because I think it's so important. But my mother died of breast cancer. The first time she had it, I'm the age she was. And then she died a few years later at 68. So my breast tissue was always dense and fibrous my whole adult life. In 8 weeks of using my method on myself, my breast tissues completely changed. And I just had another one of my clients who in 4.5 weeks, her breast tissues completely changed. So this
Wow.
stress response,
Yeah, they do say breast cancer is very very related to stress and the stress
yeah,
response.
every
That's
chronic mental or physical condition or disease has a root in the release of stress
yeah.
hormones. So when
Yeah.
you stop doing it, I can't promise anything to my clients. All I can do is step beside them and start working on this to see what opens up for them. And so that little bit of traction, here was my trigger that was so crazy for me. You'll love it, Susan. So Michigan, I live in Michigan, and in our
Yeah.
old house, we had a 1929-year-old house with gorgeous, like, arched ways and original doors. So the original beautiful door would stick on humid days. So I have to put down my violin and my groceries, I have to pull the handle to turn the knob. Oh, yeah, right? I was triggering before I even got home, thinking I'm gonna have to fight my door today. So when I figured out that my door was a trigger for me, so then when I would start to get the thought in my head, I'm, like, smiling like, "You're not gonna get me today." Like but how many times do I go in and out of my house? And I had no idea that every single time I was pissed off about it. So I go into my house, am I a nice person? Not as nice as I could be. Surely not as nice because I triggered the stress response. I'm not even aware of my behavior now. Not even aware. And this gets to something I think is really important for women because if you're a woman and you're in the corporate world or you're running a business and you get that little pushback, like you're kind of aggressive, like that's a word we hear. We say, no, I'm being assertive. I encourage you to pause for a moment and ask yourself, have I triggered the stress response? Because if you had, you probably are being aggressive. Assertiveness is very different. Assertiveness doesn't have a tone of voice. The tone of voice is really key. If the tone of voice gets us
It's
tension,
non-confrontational. Assertive is non-confrontational.
correct. And aggressiveness, you're out to fight, you're out to beat. And if
Yeah.
you're fight or flight, you may think you're being assertive, but you're actually being aggressive because you can't even see your behavior. Your eyesight, your hearing, and everything is so much shut down. Your cognitive functioning, your ability to make decisions, your memory is shut. So all of that is
I'm sure
changed.
the same with men as well, though. That they
Absolutely.
aggressive. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have, men will tell you the same thing. In fact, 2/3 of my clients are male. And that's a curious thing, by the way, that 2/3 of my clients are male. First of all, my sons tell all their friends to come work with me.
Right, right.
So there's that. But also, I find that men are looking for a solution. They want results, and they want results to work quickly. And
Yes.
so when I share what I do, that resonates with them, and they're like, "I'm in. I'm in. Let's go."
So that well, that leads me to my next question. Like when working with high achievers, men and women, like what are some of the common stress-related challenges that you see?
Mhm.
And and like what's kind of the process of helping them address these?
Yeah. The common things that I see are, with high achievers are they know they're capable of doing more or achieving more, but they're somehow blocked or stuck. Some of them will come to me and say, "I'm secretly really stressed, but on the outside, I'm looking like $1,000,000." Okay. But
Right.
inside, let's lift up the hood and then we get into it. It's like, I can't sleep. I'm grinding my teeth all night. Like, it just goes on and on, all the little
Like in
symptoms.
permanent fake it till you make it mode.
That's right. They're in that mode. If they're in sales or they're running their own show, or any of that kind of thing, the constant rejection can just be so wearing that they start to doubt themselves. So we talk about imposter syndrome or doubting, um, or the other reason people come to me is something's actually going down, like they've had a panic attack, or their physician saying, you got to do something about your stress. They've got some serious something going on, either mentally or physically. One guy said, "How do you know if someone could use your services?" I said, "Are you on any medications, like any at all?" Because if you're on any medications that you're having to constantly use, that means you have a chronic issue. And all chronic issues have a basis in stress hormone release. So let's see what happens there. Let's just see what happens.
That's just basically the whole population.
I know. There are very few. It's like my dentist. I
The
say,
US.
"Are you on any medications?" I say, "No," and they're like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "Yes." Right? It's really funny. Um, so how do we address this? Like, how do I help people? I'll just share what my method is straight up front, the steps of it, because I think that will help.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So the first step is to identify your targets. I call this targets. Like, what are you aiming for? If you're coming to learn about this, like, what needs to change? Maybe you're like, I need to make more money in my business, or I need a promotion at work. I've been stuck at this place in my work for a long time, or I'm not feeling fulfilled. So, okay, flip that. What's your target? I want to have a fulfilling career. Da, 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 da. Maybe it's personal. Maybe it's relationships. Like there's something wonky going on. It's like, no, what I really want to have is a drama-free household. Oh, what did this man say to me today? It was so beautiful, harmonious. Because I'm aiming for a harmonious household. That's
Right. I love that.
beautiful. So what is your target? It could be emotional, it could be physical, it could be performance. So we identify some of those targets, and that's what I really kind of hang my hat on. Okay, that's what we're aiming for. Now let's come back and figure out what actually is triggering you. A lot of people have triggers that are concerned with time. Like time is a real time, money, health. Like those tend to be the things. What's keeping you up at night? That's the question you can
Yeah.
ask.
Yeah.
So what's keeping you up at night? And then you start from the beginning of your day. And I love to have people do like a normal day of work or school, whatever they're doing, a normal day off, like a day off from any of that, and then a travel day. Most people have some travel anxiety or a day off and they have a party coming up. It's like social anxiety. We're coming into the holiday season. Most people trigger the stress response in any social situation. And so it's so subtle and they're not even aware. One of the things I do with my clients that's rather unusual is they can text me 24/7. It's like I had a very high level Kellogg executive
And
come
that's
in.
not a stress trigger?
Not at all. I'm so honored when my clients text me. Like, I love it because that's where the rubber meets the road. So this executive was going into a really important meeting and was just starting to feel it a little bit of anxiety. So in that moment, and she couldn't talk to me, so it's just through text. I go, do this, do this, do this. Like I just kind of upload what does she need in the moment. And she nailed it. Like she had the greatest presentation because she didn't trigger the stress response. So she retained her cognitive functioning. So I love to help people like right in the moment because it can be the weirdest moment, and now you can't remember your tools, right? It's like I
Right,
can't remember
right.
what I'm supposed to do, and I'll get this. It was like
Right.
I can't
Because their
remember what to
breathing
do.
is changing and it's making their mind go. I do remember I was a Toastmaster
Oh,
once
yeah.
and I was in a competition and I blanked.
Oh
But
yeah,
but it was also related, when you get stressed, you breathe differently, you breathe shallowly, and then, is the carbon dioxide and all of this affects like your
yeah,
mind
yeah.
function and,
We
and
can't.
you,
Yeah, we can't lodge memory correctly, nor can we access it when we're in fight or flight, and that's why you'll blank. It's
yeah,
like, wow, I know this material so well, and I can't even. That's like test anxiety too. So I help a lot of people with
right.
test anxiety. Um,
Oh, that's so valuable.
it is. I mean, and it's fascinating too. Like I will work as young as 10. Okay, 10 years old.
Mhm.
I had a
Right.
12-year-old coming to me for hockey, by the way, and he came into the second session. He goes, "Oh, this helps with school, doesn't it?" I go, "Yeah, tell me about it." These are his words. I'm not normal. I have ADHD and I'm a CD student. But this year, for the first time ever, this week, I got an A on my history test. So I said, "Oh, so you're brilliant, number one. And number two, you're a straight A student. You've just been triggering the stress response every morning before you go to school, which is why you fidget and why you can't concentrate and why you can't retain anything. And then you do study at home, but then you don't remember it when you go to take the test because you triggered the stress response." So he ended up straight A student, honor student at a charter school, high level charter school. It's like,
Wow. Yeah. So
what the
that
heck?
also helps change the self-belief as
Oh
well.
my gosh.
stop the stress, and then it just like
That's
changes
right.
your self-perception.
Notice he told me I'm not normal, right? And I'm a CD
Who
student.
is?
What does a CD student do in rural Michigan? I can tell you a few things and they're not good, right? It's like his whole life changed. So we are so much more capable, and that's why people who are high achieving tend to like to go with me because it's like they know they can do more, but something's got them blocked, and that thing
Like,
that has them blocked is this. So targets, triggers, identifying those tiny things like the phone. I had one guy who keeps his phone in a holster on vibrate, and it was like a taser. It triggered his stress response every time. Out of annoyance, he's getting interrupted. So it's not just anxiety or anger that triggers a stress response, it's anytime you feel ashamed or anytime you feel even slightly annoyed. My door was annoying to me. That was my
mhm,
biggest trigger. A lot of my high achievers, annoyance is their big thing because they've conquered a lot. If they're at the level that they are, they've done a ton of things very well.
right.
But they tend to get annoyed when people aren't moving as fast as they want them to, like when things aren't going
Right.
the way they want. And so that's kind of an interesting thing. Third step, though, are tools. Tools and the 10-second solution. You have about 10 seconds from the time your mind and body start to connect to say, okay, I'm going into fight or flight. I need to go into fight or flight here. You have about 10 seconds before that whole connection can be made to prevent the release of the hormones from the adrenal glands. So you can just start to ask yourself, what can I do in that 10-second window to not release those hormones? So my tools come in 3 types: body tools, mind tools, and life design tools. I don't know which ones are gonna work for my clients. I could give some tools here, but they might not work at all for a particular audience member. It's like, we need to dig in, discover what those triggers are, and then map the
Right.
tools that are gonna work for that. So
So
it's
it's really
really
personalized.
very personalized, and I do have online programs, but most of the people who buy that then come and work with me personally because, like, I need to dig in. I need to figure this out. And we have patterns that are generations old. We've imitated not just our parents and guardians, but people we emulate. People you might emulate on social media. You pick up their tendencies. A lot of people follow Taylor Swift and they're like picking up her tendencies. Some are good,
Mhm.
some are not so good. Like those patterns influence us. They really influence us. And so understanding the patterns and interrupting them, that's really what the work is about.
Um, I know that you're also really well known for your retreats,
Mhm.
that they sell out regularly. And I saw this on your website. Can you tell us a little bit about your retreats?
Yeah. So anyone that is one of my clients, they actually get a free retreat. But people come to my retreats who have never even experienced pressure free before. So we tend to have a mix of people. Um, I always hold one in Michigan and one in New Hampshire. Sometimes I'll throw a third one in a year in like Colorado or Florida or California, some other place, especially if I have a body of clients in those areas. At the retreats, I tend to have an agenda and a theme, but I really work with who's in the room. Like, what do we need to create here? And I tend to take people places that are very inspirational so that they have the chance to have some free time to really think about what's going on in their lives and what do they really want to create. So we took a picture on the New Hampshire one. We just took that picture 2 weeks ago. So we were up on top of Mount Kearsarge, and we called it the Clarity Breakthrough. Was last 2 weekends ago, and oh my gosh, getting up there and getting high on those mountains and just looking out, it was really meaningful for people. So I try to create a physical experience as well as the mental work when we're doing these retreats. And I keep them small, anywhere, depending on the site and what I'm doing. It could be just 4 people or 8 people, as many as 12. I don't like to go beyond 12 because that's we're sitting around with each other. It's got to feel beautiful. So
Right.
yeah,
Oh,
so
it looks amazing.
yeah,
I'm
they're
gonna have
beautiful.
So, I know that we're up on a half an hour of talking. The time flies, but
Yeah.
this is where people can get in touch with you. They can go to your website, and I think you have an option to like have a free consultation with you
Yep. Yep.
and uh, and learn more about your private coaching, your group training, your courses. In fact, you have a free email course here. If
Mhm.
the viewers would like to experience that, that's the link there.
Yeah.
And I know if you mention a high performing woman, you'll get 10% off. So
Yep.
that's very generous. That's awesome. And anything else you'd like to share as any parting words or tips?
Um, I think, some of the things I really stand for in my coaching is I really believe you deserve a beautiful life, no matter what is coming your way and what challenges you have to experience. And I think we've been rocked. We've been just rocked in so many ways over our lifetimes. And it's time to get out of that. It really is. And so I think that to me is something that's really important is breaking through some of those challenges that we just don't need to just you don't need to suffer so much. People are
Struggle
really
is optional, right?
struggle is optional. Yeah. Yeah. And you have great effort. You can actually do so much more when you're pressure free than when you're not. And that's what a lot of my clients experience. They get to take it up a whole level without the stress and burnout. So yeah. But
I
I'm
love
happy to
I
share.
I love that, Elle. Thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
sharing your wisdom. And you know, I I hope people reach out to you because I've never heard of a method like this before, and it's fascinating. And all the viewers, thank you for tuning in to High Performing Woman. If you can like my YouTube channel and subscribe, that would be great. And please feel free to make any comments and reach out to Elle. Thanks, Elle.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.